Hey everybody, we're back. It's episode 129
What?
of Making It. We're back.
Oh man.
Oh man, yes. I'm Bob Clagett, here with David Picciuto.
Oh man.
We're back. We're back. Also here with Jimmy Diresta.
Did we go anywhere? I've been here the whole time.
I think so. I guess, that's not going to make any sense for somebody who's like behind a few weeks and they're just listening to them through because they're not going to know the fact that we didn't have a show last week. Let's start over. I'm just kidding. Yeah, we're back. Finally, thanks for being patient with us last week. I was just overwhelmed with moving and living in a box fort, basically. Just boxes everywhere and stuff. But we're back to, everybody's here, getting back to a schedule and stuff. Although, I don't know about you guys, but nothing has normalized in my life yet from moving.
No. It's slowly happening, but not fast.
Here's what happened with us. We are 90% moved, and we like the new house so much we already forgot about the old house. So we don't even want to go back to move stuff or to get it ready to put it up on the market. So eventually we're going to be like, I don't like paying 2 mortgages, and we're going to finish up the other one. But right now we're too excited about the new place.
Well, I got that same exact spot with my shop when I was like, you know what? I don't think I'm fully moved, but I don't care. Whatever's there, I don't need anymore. And that's kind of how I got, because I was just so like, wow, this is cool. Now I'm functioning. I'm able to do stuff here. And, I have like whatever, safe keeps and just materials over there. In fact, I left a lot of it. And they emailed me today. They're like, have you moved completely? I said, yeah. I said, if there's anything there, you can throw it away. If you want me, I'll come get it. And they haven't emailed me back yet. So.
Awesome. I'm like I posted about this a couple days ago, but I'm still in the walking around the house looking at the piles of boxes and the unpacked things and just being like, oh my gosh, there's so much. Like, I have to do so much up here before I can get to the shop, And the other night I went down and just stood in the shop thinking like, okay, it's 11 o'clock. I can spend an hour down here and just, try to get something done, try to get something unpacked and I stood there and looked around for like 10 minutes. It was just like looking at corners going, I don't know what to do. It's like so much to do because it's a lot of stuff that it's not worth unpacking boxes if I don't have anywhere to put it, the stuff. Right. Yeah. And then I can't push things in certain places against the walls because I need to put electrical there and I can't do the electrical until I get the electrical stuff. And, there's a bunch of like sequences that I need to go through, do this thing first before I can do this, before I can do this. And, it was cool just to stand there and look around and kind of daydream at, what this thing will be once I'm done with it. But at the same time, it's kind of weird. I don't know if you guys deal with this, but it's kind of weird being, the shop stuff is so important to our business, which then is important to our lives. But in this case, like, I'm looking at the house thinking, I got to get these bedrooms done so people will have a place to sleep. Because right now, all the kids are sleeping in the living room. We have our bedroom done. And it's like, I need to build out the shop. But it's hard for me to feel like it's a super big priority when, at least major parts of the home are not done. Do you deal with that at all in this process, or?
For me, my shop is still living at the old house. And so it's like 2 separate things. And because we're still working on renovating the new shop, the old shop is completely intact and just 0.9 miles away. So it's really easy for me to get back and forth.
Right. But you are putting time into the new shop.
Yeah, we spent the entire weekend digging a trench from the house to the garage.
I saw that. So your garage is detached. Your workshop garage is detached from the regular. So you have a house with a garage and then a detached garage.
Correct.
That's
and
cool.
There was electricity running out to there, but the gauge of wire was not, I don't know anything about electricity, so I might sound dumb, but not big enough. And so we couldn't use the existing wire, and so we had to dig a new trench and bury some.
I did the same thing in my backyard because my garage is detached. We had to run 200 feet of wire for 200 amp service, and it cost me a lot of money.
Yeah, luckily, I have an amazing friend who is helping me out with it. And then there's a sidewalk in between the 2 buildings, so we had to dig underneath the sidewalk and then jamming 20 foot of metal tube in there to try to get it to level out and pop through on the other side just right. It was a lot of work. It took all day. I was like, this will only take a couple hours. And then 8 hours later, I'm like, I just want to die.
How did you end up digging underneath the concrete? I'm curious. There's a few different ways to do that.
Trenching shovel. So it's just a long, skinny shovel that you go one side and you dig out halfway through, and you go the other side and you dig out the other half.
Huh. Interesting. When we had cable hooked up here, there was no... In this area, there's still a company that does DSL, and then there's a company that does cable. And my grandfather had DSL to the house. So when I tried to hook up Comcast, there was no actual cable line running from the drop, to the house, or drop to the house. And so they came out one day and they laid a physical cable on top of the ground from the box, like 50 feet up to the house, and plugged it in. And they were like, don't drive over that. We'll be here to dig a hole in the next 2 weeks or whatever to bury it. And so I was looking forward to seeing how they got underneath the driveway, because it had to cross this existing driveway. And they came and did it while we were gone, so I didn't get to see it.
It's funny. Exact same thing happened here a couple weeks ago. Just this orange cable running through our yard up into the house. And they said, we'll be back in a few days to bury it. We'll send out a crew. And at that time, I didn't know that we were going to have to run cable underneath the sidewalk to get to the garage. Otherwise, I would have been there to watch them do it. But turns out YouTube was my friend. Didn't have to go through a whole driveway, just like a 4 foot, 5 foot wide sidewalk.
Gotcha. So what's the state of your shop? You told me before we started recording, but I don't think everybody else would be interested.
Yeah, so the new panel is hooked up, and now we get a little bit more wiring to do, but it's almost hooked up, and then we're going to install 20-some outlets throughout the garage. That's the next step. And I have HVAC coming next week to do that. We decided on mini split, and that should be fine. And then we got to work on getting the ceiling right. Right now, there is no ceiling except for a half of it, maybe a third of it. There's a ceiling where the garage doors is up, and that needs to be removed and made a little bit higher. But we're worried about the structural integrity of the building. If we remove that, is the building no longer stable? So I got to have my contractor friend come back out and say this is cool or not cool. So it'll be a couple months before I'm actually working out of it, I think.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Dang, that's a lot.
Yeah.
But you're still making stuff in the old shop? I mean, still
the old shop is completely functional this week. We're actually, the project that we're working outside here in the driveway. We're going to be building a bed in a driveway. Which is different.
Bed in parking lot, bed in the driveway.
Yeah. I thought about going to Home Depot and building the bed in the parking lot again. But it didn't make sense because it's this big thing, and we'll have to tear it apart to bring it back home and put it back together again. And Jimmy, what was that? What's going on, Jimmy?
What you watching?
I'm looking for my pick because I knew I had a good one. I just found it. Sorry. I thought my phone was on mute. Apologies.
Oops, I have to do that while you guys are talking. Jimmy, what are you working on?
What am I working on? I'm making, actually, if you guys watch my Instagram story, by the time this airs, it'll be further along. I'm working on props for a pop-up shop in Manhattan. A friend of mine, I think I might have mentioned him, he owns a company called Spray Grounds, a backpack company. All kids wear these backpacks. He was a former student of mine that had a project that, while he was a student, it turned into a huge company called Spray Ground Backpacks. And he basically is the backpack maker. Like the way kids collect sneakers, people collect his backpacks. It's kind of hip-hop inspired, all arts and graphics on all the packs. He's doing a pop-up shop, and he wants all kinds of crazy cool, like hip-hop, gaudy stuff. We actually looked to get like a wrecked Ferrari like nose, which is just still too expensive. Even a wrecked Ferrari hood is still hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And we're making gold bars. I'm making big gold, looks like big gold ingots out of styrofoam. So I've been working on that all day. And Brett's at the shop now working on that. And working on my Rockler video, which is like inching along slowly coming to a close. It's going to be an installation in my house. And what else? I'm working on a holster for my camera, a leather molded holster, which is going to be another video. And just trying to crank out the videos, trying to catch up. And I slipped in my analytics, I slipped in everything. So I'm just trying to catch up, making content, and taking a lot of work because I spent so much time not working and spending money. So I'm a little anxious. If you guys understand
know that feeling.
Yeah, just spending money and not earning it is a little stressful.
Yeah, it is. Kind of weird.
So yeah, just getting ahead of the curve and enjoying country life. I'm going back to the city this Wednesday for a meeting and just to do some banking. But I've been going down to the city typically each Wednesday, which for the last month and a half. And it's a nice little vacation to be in the city and not have to worry about the shop down the block. And not even, it's like my friend said to me, is it weird being in the city and not having to go down below Houston Street? I was like, it is such a stress relief. I don't know if I said this on the show a couple weeks ago, but every time I heard police sirens, I was like, oh my God, my shop's on fire. That's what I would always think. And the other day, the sirens went off and I was like, oh, that absolutely cannot have anything to do with me. My shop's not there anymore. There's no flammable liquids down there. There's no flammable stuff. So for years, every time I heard the fire department, I would get a little nervous that they were going over there because I had that shop in the basement of a tenement building. God forbid there was a problem down there. I would have put so many people in danger. And so there was a big stress on me all the time, always worrying like it did. I let my shop be used by a lot of people, and I was by far the most responsible. So if I let somebody do something there, I'd come in and I'd find like a torch laying on the ground with the button stuck on. Like, what are you doing? Oh, I got a phone call. I'm like, turn the torch off when you walk out. Stupid stuff like that. I was always the most responsible. So when I wasn't there and other people were doing stuff, I just didn't trust that anything was getting done right. But all that stress is alleviated. And now I'm here. I could work until 2 a.m, grinding, spray painting. Taylor uses this lacquer on her steel furniture. And last night she was about to spray one of her pieces. It was 11 o'clock at night. And she said, do you want me to spray this here or should I bring it outside? I said, it doesn't matter here. We don't have any neighbors. Just spray it all you want. It doesn't matter to me. Seriously, I mean, it's super poisonous stuff. So she put a mask on, sprayed it, and then we walked out of the room for a little while. But it was just a little touch-up. It wasn't a full-on spray job. But if I just spritz the can in the city, 311, I'd have an investigator the next day coming down to see if I had any aerosols in the place. It's a much different lifestyle up here. Much more conducive to being creative and spontaneous.
Wait, you weren't supposed to have aerosols in your old shop?
No, well, VOCs. The guy would literally came down twice while I was there in the recent years because they really got fed up with me. They started calling 311 a lot. We had painted something, and they called 311, and the EPA of the city, whatever the equivalent is, came down with like a tester. And the guy was walking around the shop because I left the gate open. And I said, hey, what's up? Often there were guys working for the building in the basement. I wasn't the only one allowed down there. And I said, what's up? He's like, oh, just checking for VOCs. Apparently somebody was painting here the other day. Like, he didn't ask if it was me or he's like, who's been painting? He was just like a guy from the city, neutral, walking around, just testing the air for VOCs with like a stick. And he goes, yeah, somebody complained, but the machine doesn't smell anything now, so everything's cool. So I was like, oh, cool. And then like right there, and then I'm like, oh, wow, I can get away with anything because it just has to be the next day. They're not going to come that night. Seriously.
That's the plan.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, they're not going to come if I spray at night. They'll come the next day when the smell's gone. There'll be no problem. No, but
that's funny.
I don't have to worry about any of that stuff anymore. Even my landlord once called me and said, I'm going to fine you if you don't clean up. And I had to clean up, and I'll never get the bit. I don't have to worry about any of that stuff anymore. And it was awesome. Part of the reason I always wanted to get out of there. I felt responsible for the people above me, and I never wanted to cause them any harm, or, physical or otherwise. So it's definitely a stress alleviated off my brain.
Yeah,
being up here, and it's just much more freedom. Like I said, much more spontaneity to be able to just like, let me start the chainsaw and do something. Let me do this. Let me just go out in the street and do this. Because like I have a huge parking lot in front of me. I could go out there and we could play baseball in front, which I'll never do. But I mean, it's like a huge field in front of me. I could. Zach put a video up of the week he was here, and I was scooting around on my Vespa trying to do donuts on my Vespa. He did like a quick video of me on his phone of me playing on my Vespa. So yeah, it's nice. It's like country living. It's like, nice. What's the last thing you hear a redneck say before he gets hurt? He says, let me try that. Hey, hold my beer. Let me try that. That's what it's like up here. Hold my beer, even though I don't drink.
Yeah. I'm really digging. I mean, it's different because I don't come from the city like in New York City, but just having more space around me not necessarily for work yet, because I haven't really gotten to that, but just being able to walk outside and like look up and have space. Like I can see horizon to horizon, and it's huge. And when I look forward, there's just a giant field. And
you don't have you don't have neighbors close like you did, right?
Well, no, I mean, there's a neighbor right next to us. But out of our backyard, there's a giant field straight out. So if you look directly at the backyard, you don't see anybody. Right. If I look to my left, then I see them, and they're good neighbors, and we're friends and stuff. But it's like so close to be able to just walk out into the wilderness. And we've been on trails and stuff the past several days. It's just, man, it's so nice. I'm loving it. It's great. Kids are getting used to a different style of being outside, because like in Savannah, it's nice. It's just a different type of environment. And, out there, they had in the neighborhood that we were in, they had kind of limited access to space and to stuff. And so we spent a lot of time in our yard, in the pool, which is great. But like when they wanted to go outside to play, it was like, okay, you can go into our tiny front yard, or you can go into the backyard if one of us are there, because the pool's open and that's our rule. And now it's like, they're like, hey, can I go outside? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Just make sure you can see the house. And they just go outside and they run.
Don't get eaten by a wolf.
Yeah.
Is there a difference? Is there a difference in the humidity level?
Yes. Yeah. It's way less humid. I mean, it gets humid here sometimes, but I was actually thinking about that earlier today. There, when you go outside and you go, oh, it's hot, I can't breathe. Here you go out and you're like, oh, it's hot. That's all right. It's not a big deal. Like I don't feel like somebody is breathing hot air into my mouth when I breathe. That's what it felt like in Spain. So, yeah.
You don't like that?
That's the visual that you wanted, I'm sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. But I agree with you, like being in a different space and like a more of a, I don't want to say country because it's not the country here, but it's just a more open kind of natural space that we get to take advantage of, and it's been awesome. And of course, I've already said I'm not really in the shop yet, but I'm really looking forward to having that space. I got the first materials for my first project today in the shop, and was able to just like carry them in. And I was like, oh, where do I want to put these? I got space right there, or right there, or right. I can put these sheets, and they're not in the way of anything, which is amazing. Because in the old shop, it was very much like I have to pre-think about where do I need to put these so that they don't interrupt the next 2 weeks worth of moving things around.
That's amazing. It's the same thing with me. I can go to Home Depot on a whim and pick up a whole truck full of plywood, and then on the way back to meet Taylor for dinner, I could just stop at the shop and just dump them off and not have to unlock the door because I have this big foyer. It's kind of like it's a loading dock in front that has like a big shed, so I can just back up, unload the truck, and then pull away, and it's in a spot where nobody will mess with it. So far off the road, no one will mess with it. But in the past, I'd have to make literally like plans. Me and David always joke about we have to make arrangements like we're going to rob a bank. Like that's what it was like. We'd have to figure out, okay, when we put the car here, where are you going to be? How are we going to avoid getting caught by the police, getting a ticket, being double parked? None of that is part of my equation anymore. I could just go buy stuff and, you know what? I'll pick up 5 more sheets for me. It has to be like, there's no room for it. We have to wait till we get rid of stuff.
Yeah. Nice.
Yep.
Well, what are we going to talk about?
I think you had.
I know what we're going to talk
about. Yeah, you suggested an interesting topic.
So since this move, over the last year or so, I've been thinking more about how I make decisions about things and the process of moving. I know we've been talking about moving a lot for the past several weeks, and I know not everybody else in the world's moving, so sorry. But I think this might apply to more people. So over the past year, I've been thinking about making this move, and it was a big transition for our family. And part of that process of thinking through, like, well, why do this? Because, I can work from anywhere. I didn't have to move for a job, which is often the case for people. Part of thinking about why I wanted to move at all made me look at midlife crisis stuff, right? I mean, I had to be fair to myself and look at that and be like, is this me just going like, I'm picturing my own mortality, I'm seeing where my life is and I want to make a change before I can't change it again. Is it something like that? Or is it something else. I don't know. There's a bunch of options there. But I've thought a lot about that over the past year. And that kind of made me start thinking about like how our age plays into the decisions that we make. And if it does at all, it may not for a lot of people. But so I have some thoughts on how my age, and maybe not age, but place in life or like life phase or whatever, I'm starting to understand a little bit more how that affects me and the stuff that I decide to do and the things that I care about. And so I was just kind of curious if you guys had any situations like that, or if you have any thoughts on how it applies to you.
No, definitely. I broke ground on this space in my backyard, and I want a shop that's going to be my last shop. Like the one in my backyard, that'll be it. Because in the city, I've had 3 separate shops. Now this one upstate is, a 4th one in the last 25 years. And the next one that'll be in my backyard, that's going to be it. I mean, unless major changes take place that I'm not anticipating, that's going to be it. And I'm 50 years old, so I just spent 25 years bouncing around from here to here to there because I didn't own any of it. This one I'll own, and I don't foresee myself going anywhere. Avoid any major changes, but definitely. And then now that I'm 50, I think to myself, I'm getting a puppy. Taylor and I are going to get a puppy on Saturday. We're getting a puppy Yorkie. I think I told you guys. And we bought him months ago. He was born May 1st, and we get him 12 weeks later. And the whole time I'm like, okay, I'm going to have him until I could be 65, by the time he finally checks out. So I'm thinking about how old I'll be. He's like, he'll be like, we have several animals, but he's going to be like my next child, so to speak, because I don't have any other real children. So I make all these considerations. It's like, can I handle a puppy when I'm 65? I'm only joking right there and then, but the idea, of course I can. But the idea of, making decisions, and then also now that I'm 50, I mean, it's a weird threshold. You guys will be there in a few years, but should I try and do this? I'm like, nah, I'm 50. I don't apply. It doesn't apply to me anymore. Like I've even written to people about, potential like being commentators and like YouTube series and stuff. I'm like, you know what? I'm 50. It doesn't apply to me anymore. I just keep working on my own channel. It's like and now when I get involved in TV show stuff, I'm like, I don't know. Like 50 is the magic number where it's like, you're not a kid anymore. So
about that right there, is that, do you have that feeling because you think you're too old for what they're looking for, or is it because you personally are like, this is just not a thing that I care about at my age?
A little of both. Sometimes I wish I would have been more, obviously wish I would have been more successful at the TV adventures that I've done. When you see some of these guys that are set for life, like, for instance, like the Chopper family that made motorcycles, their glaring success is just, seems to be long lasting, even though the show's off the air. But, I never had that type of TV success. But I'll never capture it now. At 50, I'll never have that. The opportunities I had when I was in my 30s on TV, I'll never have those same opportunities again because they're going to look for another 30-year-old. They're not looking for me. I mean, they would only look for me if I was some famous artist that that makes his own way. What I mean? Like that made my own. So it's like I have to, it's like no one's going to make me now at my age. I have to make me at my age. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I can't count on any production company or any TV network to like pull me into their fold. They're like, hey, you're going to be our guy. That's totally over for me.
Well, that's interesting to put it that way, that, situations like that where they're looking for a guy. Mm-hmm. Whereas the older we get, and older anybody gets, you become less and less what they're looking for when they look for a guy to fill a space or a girl to fill a space.
Yeah.
And so that's interesting. The way to look at it is that you're looking to be you, in control of you, and they're looking for someone to be what they want and that they can kind of be in control of, So,
I mean, the only way I'll have success in this entertainment business, this, DIY maker entertainment business, is if I just keep doing my own thing on YouTube. And then if I get I don't know if I'll get any more successful than we are at this point. But if I get, the only way that I'll really be involved in any sort of like bigger TV success is if I get wildly successful on my own. But like I said, I'm 50. I'm not going to get Justin Bieber numbers now. I'm not going to get, Miranda numbers. You know what I'm saying when it comes to YouTube? I think I'm kind of settled out where I'm at. At least it's, I got to keep making weapons. Every time I make weapons, my numbers go up. But I gotta rejuvenate, make a few weapons.
Yeah, do that once a month, man. Get your momentum kicked back up.
Yeah, but no, like I was saying, that the 50 number is definitely a threshold. I feel like I've crossed the threshold, and now every time I meet somebody, like they walk away, I say to Taylor, I'm like, that guy's 51. She's like, no way, he looks like he's 60. That guy's 53.
You know, Jimmy, if you follow through with that fidget spinner, you're going to gain a huge audience.
Oh, yeah. Did you tell that was a fidget spinner in my Fusion image? Do you know what I'm talking about?
We talked about it briefly a couple weeks ago, but I don't think I...
Last night I did my blog, and there was a vision of a wheel that I'm working on, a Fusion an image of a wheel. That's going to be my fidget spinner. It's made to look like a 1930s flywheel.
Oh, nice.
Only the old timers are going to want to play with it, not the kids.
Old timers are like, I got better things to do. So I'm curious about that. You kind of said something a second ago that made me think. I mean, maybe the TV and the success thing maybe doesn't apply to as many people as a relative point. But what about like things in the shop? Like, have there been things where you've lately, where you've thought like, hey, I want to make this or I want to do this, and maybe I shouldn't because I'm whatever, because my hands hurt more than they used to, or because...
Oh, yeah, no, like physical work. I mean, all my joints hurt. I can't get down on my knees as quickly. Like I'm sitting here at the table with my knees bent. When I go to get up, I got to push off the table. So, like, physically, my knees are really, really spent. If I spend a lot of time up and down the next day, my knees really feel it. But as far as, like, in the shop, I feel like I'm getting younger. I'm like Benjamin Buttoning, learning how to use the laser, playing with my CNC, and doing all these things that I never thought ever I would ever do. Like I never, ever thought I was going to play with a CNC. I remember seeing guys use like the vinyl cutter like 10, 15 years ago. And I'm like, wow, that's like so over my head. I can't believe those guys are using a vinyl cutter. I'll never learn how to use a vinyl cutter. And now that's like you buy an Amazon, you're in a vinyl cutter business in 2 minutes, And so the idea of technology and how it intersects my life, it's really kept me young. And then another thing that always keeps me young at heart is my students. Having 20-year-olds for the last 25 years that I teach each year. And now I think I told you guys I'm not going to go back to school next year. I might go back to a different school, but I'm not going to go back to the School of Visual Arts. I basically sent in my resignation letter to my chairman.
Didn't know that.
Yeah. I need a change, and I actually had been teaching there for 24 consecutive years, and it's enough already. I mean, I'm happy teaching the world through my YouTube channel, and there is some other opportunities for some colleges in the city, so I'm going to see if I could pursue just a different change of scenery. But yeah, it's I don't feel as old as I am. I'll tell you that much.
I have found that the older that I get, the less selfish I become. And I don't know if that's a product of getting older or just me being more self-aware because of various things. I had, up until I was like 6 years ago, when I was 36, I had never lost anybody close to me. And then my grandfather passed away, and that was the first time I've ever had to deal with anything like that. And then this year, losing my dad, and then I'm seeing one of my aunts dealing with like advanced stages of MS. I just kind of, I think I'm less selfish because I see the world differently now. Like, we are fragile. We're only here for so long. And just being less selfish, I have a completely different outlook on a lot of the things that we do, and I think it does make a difference in what I choose to do with my life, like the path that I'm taking, and just always trying to do the right thing that's best for us, that's best for the earth. Like I think about the earth more now in my decisions, and I don't know, just less selfish, I think, as I get older.
Do you have any specific examples of like, and maybe that's too personal, you don't have to, but do you have any specific examples of stuff that you've like, that that you've done differently in the last year or 2 years or whatever than you would have before? And maybe it's not related to those things, but even just like how you run your business or where you choose to put yourself. Or
I will say that 4 years ago, Kelly and I had a couple conversations where we actually decided to try to change our mindset about certain things, where we tried to just be more positive and say less negative things, be less selfish or whatever. And for whatever reason, as soon as we like made this thing where we tried to remove negativity, that's when good things started to happen to us. It's when I was able to opportunities started to come up when I was able to quit my job. I don't know that I have any very specific answers, but just once I decided to remove negativity, good things started to happen.
Do you have something, Jimmy?
Yeah, it's funny you should say. The older I get, the less selfish I get, and that's basically what you just said, but in a different way. When someone's in my shop and they're like, "Oh, this is really cool," I'm like, "Oh, you could have it." They're like, "I could have it." I'm like, "Yeah, you know what? I get another one. I don't need it." Or like when we went to Boston and I gave away all those tools. There was a time in my life where like I hoarded them and like I needed them for some weird comfort. But now, like as I get older and I'm getting more mature, I'm like, "Oh wow, I have 3 of these. Let me give 2 of them to somebody that need them." And that's partially because of this community, but that's definitely me maturing and realizing I don't need all this stuff around me. I obviously have lots of junk, but when someone's in my shop and they're like, "This is a cool piece of metal," I'm like, "Take it. I'll just get another one." I mean, if I need it for something, I know where to get it. You're starting out, you don't know where to get it. You have it in your hands right now. Go build something. So I get much more of a reward, where in the past I'd be like, I need that. Like, and if it's moved, I get anxious about it. I still have a little bit of that, of course, but the older I get, it's more about having an easy time and encouraging people to do stuff.
So the example, I just thought of a couple of examples. A few, like I used to say, let's say 2-3 years ago, when a family member or a friend would be like, "Hey, can you help me out with this thing?" I'd be like, "I'm so overwhelmed with work. I'm behind. I got to do all these things." And many of those times, because I was so into what I was doing, I would have to politely say no. And now I find myself saying yes to those things. I try to help family and friends more because I realize those things are more important than work. And I know that if I miss a day of work, if I miss a project that week, I'm going to be okay. I should use my time to help those people. So that's the example that I have.
Yeah, that's a good example. I do this thing with our kids, and people may not like this, and that's okay. I don't really care. So our kids, we have 4 kids, and they are similar in age, and so they play with a lot of the same things. They're into a lot of the same things. And, kids get selfish about stuff. They like toys, and they like books, and they like whatever. And they, if it's theirs, they have like an ownership, and it's like a me thing. And so I've always done this thing with our kids. If there's a toy or something, a physical thing that causes a fight between 2 kids, the thing goes away. And immediately, like no questions, it's like if I see them fighting, I pick it up and I'm like, all right, this thing is gone. And they're like, but what, but why? And I'm like, well, the person you're fighting with is more important than the thing you're fighting over. Right. And then just walk away. And I do that over and over and over as a way to reinforce to them that like the interaction that they're having is way more important than the thing that they care about. Like they're misfocused, in that time. And that started to work because now that the 2 older ones at least are beginning to respond a little bit more. If they see that they see themselves fighting over a thing, and I start to walk up to it, they're like, "Okay, you can have it here," because they know it's more important to like. I don't need this thing bad enough to lose access to it, and. Right. And like, I don't know. Empathy is a really big thing for me. It's like something I always want people to care about, or I want my kids to care about the people around them more than the stuff around them. And that's one way that I've tried to kind of do that. And it plays into the same thing that you were just saying, in that we can focus on what we want and where we're looking and what we're doing at the moment, and not necessarily think about the fact that there's somebody right there next to us that also has a need. Mm-hmm. it's easy for us to just get heads down. It's easy for me to do, like to get heads down and work and just think about how much I have to do, or, people will be okay. My kids will be okay. They don't necessarily need me right now. And if I can snap myself out of that, a lot of times I'm like, man, what am I doing? Like, these are my kids. These kids, they need and deserve everything from me. And sometimes that means I have to work to make money to feed them. Yes. But it also means that they deserve my attention and stuff,
Yeah.
Do you have something? You look like you're about to say something.
Me?
No? Yeah.
Oh, no. I'm just acknowledging you. I like that idea of if they fight over an object, it gets taken away. I love that idea. When I have puppies fighting over a toy, I'm going to do that. I have to take it away.
That's what I do with my dogs, too.
I have an uncle who's in his mid-50s, and he says he doesn't feel any different now, age-wise, than he did when he was 19. And it makes me think, I'm like, I don't think I feel any different now, except, I'm a little bit bigger. I can't run as fast, but I feel the same. I think mentally I'm still alert. Have you guys noticed a change in just how you feel?
No, I mean, honestly, I think my sense of curiosity, I always say you got to maintain a childlike sense of curiosity. I think it's getting bigger. I think it's gotten bigger and bigger. And when I react to some of the things, it's funny. I don't expect people to even notice. I don't even notice it. I edited a video recently where I was talking to the guy about the concertina he made. And a lot of the comments were, wow, listen how excited you were listening to the guy talk about this machine he made. And I didn't even notice it when I edited it. I heard myself going, oh my God, look at that. And I was like, oh, that's like, I kind of was a little embarrassed about it, but I left it in the video because it was part of the soundtrack. And everyone's like, oh my God, listen how excited you are listening to that thing. And when people sent me, like a guy sent me a picture of a giant antique bandsaw that's 20 miles away from my house. He said, this is sitting in a barn since I was a little kid. He goes, do you want me to ask about it? I was like, yeah. I said, oh my God. I said, absolutely. I said, I can't wait to own that thing and get my hands on it. So like that excitement, I think it's getting more and more because now I have more opportunities because I have more fans knowing what I like and showing me cool stuff. Every time I open my email, there's like a cool gift, even if it's just a statement. There's a great gift from a fan, and that childlike sense of curiosity and excitement, it just gets bigger and bigger. Keeps me going.
Yeah, I don't feel like I've lost any of that as well. Like I feel like I'm getting more and more motivated to be active and like to be proactive in making the stuff that I want and all that. Whereas I think younger me was probably a little more self-conscious about whether I could do it right or not. Now I'm like, I know I can't do it right, but hey, that's awesome.
Absolutely.
That means I can't mess it up too bad, right? I just,
Exactly.
It's only going to get better. And so I do feel like I'm almost getting younger, and from that perspective, I'm getting more curious and more motivated. It's funny though, and this is part of what triggered this whole conversation. The other day on Twitter, Gavin from the Slow Mo Guys, you guys know who he is? Mm-hmm. Like you forget how old you are relative to other people. Sure. And so I was looking at a tweet that he put out and he was like, something and I'm 29 and I only did this. And I'm looking at the guy going, wait, I thought we were about the same age, but you're 29? That means I'm definitely not the same age as you. But it was weird because it was the first time I like legitimately thought I was within a couple of years of another person. And then it dawned on me that like, wow, I'm older than, in age, it's a number, whatever, it doesn't really matter. But it just kind of caught me off guard. Like, I need to be realistic about who I am and like what I am and like the age I am relative to these other people. But I don't feel like I'm getting older. Yeah. Like I try to stay active. I try to stay healthy, mainly for my kids because I want to be alive for them. Well, I generally don't feel older. Since I've been doing all this hardwood flooring, I've been, like doing a lot of more manual labor type stuff lately. My knees are a little bit more sore, my shoulders are more sore when I wake up in the morning and stuff like that. So I guess I am kind of feeling it in that way. But in general, I don't feel like I'm slowing down. I don't feel like I'm, like losing my oomph for things. But that's just me.
If you would have asked me 5 years ago what keeps me young, I would have said music. Because that just made me feel young, playing music, being up on the music scene. But now I think it's being creative and finding an outlet to be creative. Because I think when you're in elementary school, you're encouraged to draw and come up with these things and use construction paper and build all these things. And then when you get older, that kind of goes away. And now I get to do that again, and it makes me feel like a kid.
Yeah. Yeah, it stretches a part of you that hadn't gotten stretched in a long time.
Right.
Well, the other day with my laser, it was the same thing. It was in my, you guys might not have seen my vlog this week, but I got the laser hooked up, Dave, this week, and I was playing with it all by myself.
Aww.
I was flying solo, and oh my God, it's like the discoveries. Like, will it burn this? Will it burn this? Will it cut this? Will it cut that? Put like 20 different materials in that thing. Will it cut this? Will it burn that? And I'm like, okay, let me see how small I can get my logo. This is so much fun.
Nice.
So, it's cool.
So another kind of related question to all this, Jimmy, this doesn't really, maybe you can find a way to apply it to you, but I know that, David, you and I both left relatively safe, secure jobs to do what we're doing now, and we did it at around the same age. Do you feel like you would have made that same kind of risky jump if you had, I don't know where you were 10 years before, but at that point in your life, if you had something secure and, that paid well and everything, do you think you would have made that same jump at that age?
I think there's a wave. If I was in my early 20s, I would have made that jump, and then 10 years ago, that would put me at 32. I don't think so. Because I think at that time, I was in the mindset of like, you work for somebody else, and you start a family, and you do this thing. This is what you're supposed to do. And then when I realized, like, no, you can do whatever you want to do and take chances. So 10 years ago, no. 20 years ago, yes.
Yeah, I kind of had the same answer, actually. That's interesting to hear. Because I think when you, like for me, that time when I was right out of college, kind of like, all right, the world is my oyster. Like, what do I want to do? That kind of thing. And I started a business, so I kind of did that. And then I think it's probably really common for people once you get to maybe not a certain age, but a certain point in your life where you're trying to settle down in some perspective, whether it's like with another person or with a family or buying a home or whatever the thing is that you define as settling down. You start to look at security and you're like, well, if I'm going to settle this in this place, I have to be able to continue to be here and provide for whatever this is. And so the risks become greater. And I think for me, that was both thinking about the risk and, what all I have to lose if a job doesn't work. But it was also, I think, maybe a lack of confidence in that, I know I'm good at programming. Well, not anymore, but I used to be. I used to know that I was good at programming, and I could do that without really thinking about it. But I wasn't confident in my ability to do whatever the other things were that I was interested in. Music is a really good example of that. I was never confident enough to try to make a career out of music, even though I liked it. But then at this point in my life, where I've gotten a little bit older, I've been building confidence in myself, in my ability to learn new things, and my ability to just figure out how to survive enough to where taking big risks at this point, like quitting a job that was secure, it's not really that big of a deal for me. Because I think at this point I've gotten mature and confident enough to be like, well, if this doesn't work, then I can figure something else out. I can build houses. I don't really know how, but I can figure it out. I can any of these number of skills that I've been kind of like dabbling in over the years, like I can take one of those and dive deep on it and turn it into a career. And I don't think I would have felt that same way 10 years ago, maybe not even 20 years ago, but it's interesting how that works out.
So that leads to the question, what would current self tell your 20-year-old self?
What would the 20-year-old hear information from this version of me?
Yeah. What would you tell that one to, with your vast knowledge of 50 years?
I guess the only thing I would say is honestly, I've taken chances my whole life, and I kind of bucked advice from almost everybody that's given me advice. Everybody always says, take the safe route. What if it doesn't work out? And remember, we always talked about what if it does work out? And in various parts of my in various attempts in my life, it has worked out, and others it hasn't. So I have a nice balance of success and failures to reflect upon. I guess the only advice I would give myself is save more money. That would be it, because I'm like, I'll blow it all. I'll make more money down the road. I'll just work harder. That's always been my theory. It's like work harder, make more money. And at 50 years old, I'm making more money by working less physically. And I just want to kind of widen that. I want to like just wake up and think and make the most money I ever made. So I'm so physically
beautiful.
You let me know if you figure that one out.
Yeah. I want to move my eyelids and my eyebrows and make money instead of every other part of my body. No, so I guess all I would say is just save money. Honestly, I've always done what I wanted. I've always been a bit of a I think outside the system kind of guy. And I attribute that to my dad in a way that people probably wouldn't assume. My dad has always wanted to play it safe. Always. He said, play it safe. Do this. If I was in art school, he said, maybe you want to be a fireman too. I was like, I don't want to be an artist and a fireman. Well, you should take the police test. I said, I do not want to be a policeman. If I'm not going to be a successful artist, I'll be a successful something that is not a policeman. He always said, lean back on something. I'm like, this is my life. I want it to be what I want it to be. I don't want it to be what the safe route is. I never thought like that. And it's always because my dad always said, do this. And as a kid, we always don't do what our parents say. So my dad forced me into a life of entrepreneurship because he wanted me to take the safe route. And he forced it on all three of us, all four of us, three meaning my brothers and my sister. And in each one of our own ways, we've always did what we wanted. My brother John became a civil servant, pushed by my dad, but the entire time he knew he should have been a comedian, and he eventually became that comedian that he knew he was. So it's I don't know. I guess I would just tell myself to save more money. That would be it.
I think for me it would be something to the effect of, when you're looking at something, you're immediately going to think of the worst case scenario. Make sure you balance it with the best case scenario, which is kind of the same thing as like, what if it all goes right? But I think a lot of times when we look at things, the only outcome that we really focus on is what could possibly go wrong. Like, what is the absolute worst? We don't think, because that rarely happens. It's usually somewhere in the middle. But I think I would just tell myself to balance the worst with the best when you're, trying to figure out what to do. What about you, David? Do you have something?
Yeah, the silly answer would be like, hey, David, the internet is coming. It's going to blow your mind.
Invest in YouTube.
Invest in YouTube, yeah. The real answer is stop worrying about what your parents and your friends think and do what you want to do. Because I think I played it safe, and I did things because this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what my mom wants me to do. And I think I did a lot of that, and I didn't do what I really felt was in my heart. And now I am. And here we are. I'm hosting a podcast with a couple of my best friends, having a good time.
Awesome.
Right on.
I just thought of another piece of advice I'd give myself and everybody else.
Too late. You already said yours.
This is for everybody else. To the younger people out there listening. When you meet, say, a TV producer, or you meet the millionaire that's going to give you breakaway success as far as furniture design, or when you meet that guy that's like, I'm going to design 20 buildings and you're going to be my number one guy, don't think that's going to be, that's one stepping stone in your way. I've met so many people that are going to change my lives, and the only thing they did was give me a little bit of income for a little bit of time. So there was so many life-changing meetings I've had. This is going to make you a millionaire. This is going to be, and I leave that meeting, and then I leave it up to them to do their part of it, and nobody follows through. So that's a little bit negative, but when you meet these people in your life that are going to take you down that road of success, you have to lead that road. You have to be as pivotal as that money person, or that gatekeeper to, say, production, or that gatekeeper to, a factory, or whatever that is. I've had so many examples. I can't even think of a good clear one. I've had 3, maybe 4 TV opportunities, and I was kind of almost shut out of leading any of that, because once you get into the TV world, it's like a kind of a closed door creative that you're not allowed in. But always, you got to work it as hard as you expect them to work it. You can't just sit back and say, oh, I'm in the passenger seat of this Ferrari. They're going to drive me to success. You got to work as hard as you think they're going to work, and you got to keep making sure you're pushing the ball forward every day. Don't let somebody else do it when you think that you met the expert, because there really are no experts. Everybody you meet, they're just lucky. They got lucky. They worked hard. They got lucky. Some people didn't work at all, and they got lucky. So that's it.
Well,
You got to drive. You got to drive from the passenger seat, basically. If I could put it in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kind of along with that same topic, when someone comes to you and says, we want you to be this. TV's a good example because I think that's the way that works. There's a team of people that come up with an idea. They go to a network, they get funding, they do whatever, and then they go to a person and they say, we want you to be the thing on screen. And immediately, I think our people's natural response is like, I have my own TV show. The fact is, you're like a puppet that gets put in front of this thing and it gets not told what to do. That sounds kind of
But it's not
negative.
It's not
I
your
don't really
thing.
mean it that way.
You're part of
It's
a
not your
bigger
thing.
thing.
It is though, because you're a part of a bigger thing, and then look at how many famous people you think, this show or this production or whatever it is. I mean, we keep using shows, but it's not necessarily about entertainment specifically. But the head of a company, you think the company's not going to go anywhere without him. Steve Jobs, they were able to keep going without him, although he came back. But any one of these huge companies, it's like almost like they still live. The company lives on without them.
Yeah, Sorry, I was going to finish my thought real quick. Just make sure that if you get approached by something like that in your life and somebody wants to hey, we're going to put you out in front, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have any control over that thing and that you're going to have any input. And for some people, that's perfectly fine. Like if you don't want to have creative input into the thing that you're a part of, right on, go for it. In my mind, that's like heavy metal or like punk rock versus pop music. Most pop musicians are voices, and they don't generally write their stuff. They just go perform it. And that's great because that's what they want to do. Other people really want to be the creative force behind the thing that gets played or created. And you don't have to necessarily be one or the other of those things. But when you get into, as you're building your career or whatever, and you have people coming to you like Jimmy's talking about, just make sure that you decide kind of where you want your control to lie. Mm-hmm. And be realistic about what it's going to be going forward. I've run into this a little bit over the last couple of years, so I just want to throw that in there.
It's just know what you want your role to be.
Yeah.
I was going to say it was kind of a left turn, but one of my fears is when you run a business, you're always supposed to expand, get bigger, move on, do these other things. And one of my fears is it getting too big, where there's too many people involved, because I see all these independent YouTubers who now have a whole office team help building their videos. And then I'm like, that's sort of like TV, and it's no longer this like one, like independent thing. It's now a corporation of people making this YouTube channel, and it kind of loses its independence. And I hope, at least right now, I want to keep it very small. Right now, it's me and somebody else. Maybe next year it'd be me and somebody else and somebody else. But I can't see it getting much bigger because I don't want to lose that control.
Yeah. Well, there again, it's the same kind of deal as like you have to decide ahead of time what you want your role to be. Yeah. And if, like Rhett and Link, if anybody knows Rhett and Link, they're two guys that started as a comedy duo on YouTube, and it was just the two of them for years and years and years and years, and they've been around for a long time, and they're extremely successful. And when we were at VidCon, we heard them talk, and somebody asked like how many people they had on staff now, and Rhett was like, I don't know, it's like 30 or something. And I was like, dude doesn't even know how many people work for him. That's crazy, when you think about it. And it's awesome from one perspective because they now have the infrastructure to do the things that they wanted to do. So if you look at it that way, it's not like they're just building like, let's get as many employees as we can have. They're filling all these gaps so that they can focus on the specific part that they want to do. That's not for everybody. But, I think to what you're saying, I think it's like deciding kind of where you want your thing to end up. Do you want it to be super small and personal and like really authentic, or do you want it to be something else, giant and higher production or whatever. And, there's a million reasons for it, but anyway.
Can I ask you a question?
Cool.
Both of you, actually. So, do you see your videos as an execution of your ideas? I'm going to say yes, right? Like,
what do you mean?
So,
exactly?
what I'm getting at is, I see my videos as like, this is my idea, and this is, I'm putting it out there. I now have somebody that works for me, and sometimes he puts his ideas in there, and I kind of walk the line of like, okay, when is this no longer like completely maybe I'm getting selfish again. Maybe I'm hitting that wave and I'm going back to being selfish. But I like the idea of saying this whole thing was my came from my head, and I made this. Do you take input from the people that work for you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I know that I'm not great at everything. I think I am good at some. I think I'm reasonably good at a lot of things. I don't think I'm great at very much at all.
Do you worry that that's going to change the vision?
No, because the vision is to get people inspired to do more, to get people thinking they can do more than they actually. Wait a minute, let me start over. To get people to realize that they can do more than they think they can. And that means things being better than I can make them. That means reaching more people in more ways. And, there again, it's just like depending on what you want to get out of it and what you're trying to create, it's different for everybody. But for me, I think, if I have somebody else's input that I trust and I value their skills and what they're going to do, it's only going to be better than if I were doing it by myself. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I think I look at my business as from an artist's perspective, where it's my signature on the bottom of the painting.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, see, I kind of started from my very beginning. I didn't look at it that way, or I would have called it like, nah, that sounds negative. I'm not responding negatively to you. When I thought about it, it was like, I can either create it as a company or I can create it as Bob Clagett. Like if I wanted it to be more of a personal artist, this thing is about me, I would have gone more of the personal name, try to put my face in it. I've put my face in it more in the last couple of years, or the last year or so. But before that, I kind of kept my face out of it as much as I could because I didn't really want it to be about me so much. But anyway, I decided early on to go more of the company route so that I could theoretically someday add more people to create more types of content to reach more types of people,
Yeah.
So it's just like a different approach than what you're doing.
And to be honest, I don't even think about it that much. The only time I ever really kind of think about it from that perspective is when we talk about it on the podcast.
But have you run across videos that have come out and you've been like, oh, wow, that wasn't something I would have done? Like the way something was shot or something that, your guy put into it?
I'm doing a lot of directing. So I'm pretty much getting for the most part, what I want. Although Eric is he's better at filming than I am. He has brilliant ideas. And the joke is like, okay, let's film it that way, but let's pretend it was my idea. That's kind of we say that all the time.
Well, what I do with Brett all the time is when we're shooting a video together, and Brett's been a great help with the videography. I'll shoot the couple things that I want. I know what I want. And then I say, you know what, in these next 5 shots, just be creative because I trust he's going to come up with something good. And so we have this rhythm where it's like, okay, I'm going to direct him to do these 5 things that I know I need for the edit, but then spend the next few minutes getting creative. And then, more often than not, I use the stuff he comes up with. But a lot of times I'm just thinking of the edit. I'm just thinking, okay, I just was here, now I got to be here, now I got to be here, now I got to be here. So let's just get those and then get creative. And then, it just gives me choices. That's all I'm really always looking for is choices. And I totally trust his cinematography and his composition.
Yeah. That's a good question. You guys got anything else on that? Cool.
Cool.
Okay.
We're all over.
No, well, it's funny. It's funny, Dave. I got interrupted, guys. I'm sorry. I had to check out for a second. But Dave, you were talking about how when you see, like, for instance, Philip DeFranco, and he looks like he's like the head of like a giant production company, and he just puts these videos out, of him talking about the news, and that makes me nervous. Like, I don't ever want to get to that point where I have like a staff and an office.
That's the exact example I was thinking of in my head.
Yeah, no, because I see the changes he's been going through, and I know you watch him, and I know I watch him. I watch him, and I see, and once in a while he'll show like the back room, stuff, and it's like, what do all these people do?
Right.
That's like when you look at like, what does Beam do? What do all those people do at Beam? There's not even a product yet. They're all standing around typing on. They've got to be just checking their messages. That's it. That wasn't doing anything else. No, you got to tell me that 8 hours a day those people are creating something. All they're doing is reading the comments on Instagram. They're probably answering Casey's comments.
That's probably true. Yeah.
Oh my God. It drives me crazy when I see all that. It's not my money, but.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's a difference because I think if you look at, take Tested for an example, as a company that is a team that there's not as many people on staff, but there is a team of people that do different things, and their videos still have like personalities to them. They still have...
Tested to me seems really tight and small. I mean, I don't know. It seems like there's 4 people. That's it. I mean, is it?
Yeah, I don't know how many full-time people there are, but they have kind of contributors that come in and out, which I think is probably what helps them be nimble and small. Yeah. But I think they're a good example of something that's not one guy doing a thing, but people, they have a video guy who's really good at shooting and editing. They have Norm, who's really good at presenting. They have Adam, who's good at building stuff and presenting. And, they bring in all these people that are specialized for certain things, and they don't keep them on staff all the time, but they come in to do their thing well. And then they move on to somebody else doing their thing well. So there are ways to do that, I think, to grow and to have a team to make good stuff without it, like, spiraling into, a news agency or whatever. Mm-hmm. But anyway... We got way off topic. You guys got anything else? You want to wrap it up?
Let's wrap it up.
Oh, wait. Let's, what are we watching? Yep. Hey, look, we're back.
Hey. Shaking off the rust.
You guys watch anything? Yeah. You guys watch anything cool?
Jonathan Katz-Moses. He was over at my shop last week, and he taught me how to cut some dovetails. And we even have a fancy inlaid dovetail video coming out very soon that we shot. But I wanted people to check out his YouTube channel. He hasn't put anything up in a year, but he's got like 5 videos in the works. He just can't find time to edit them. But he does good stuff. So Jonathan Katz-Moses, big supporter of what I do. He's a good dude.
Nice.
Now, somebody might have mentioned him before, but I just discovered him. I've only watched 2 of his videos, and they were great. And that it just came up in my suggested things. Maker's Muse. Have you guys watched Maker Muse?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know him?
Yeah, I met him in California. Angus.
Is that his name? And he's like a very great presenter. I mean, he's very skilled at what he's doing, and he's about 3D printing, fusion, and mechanisms discussions. Like I said, I've only watched a couple of his videos, but they were presented very well, and he seems like he's getting traction. He's got about 150,000 subs, and he presents information very clearly and precise.
Yeah.
So, Maker's Muse.
Yeah, he's a good dude. I met him in Maker Faire, which you guys missed out on. It was awesome. It was so much fun. Best one ever. You should have gone. Anyway, so this shouldn't be a surprise, but Radiohead. But specifically, Radiohead's YouTube channel. So I don't know if anybody, if you're not a fan of Radiohead, you don't know this, but they play very few shows. They go on like 1 tour a year. They only play in the biggest possible venues in the world because they bring so many people in. So it's practically impossible to get tickets. Every time they go out, they have shows. They'll play Madison Square Gardens like 3 nights in a row, and they get sold out in like 10 minutes or whatever. And so people have a hard time getting tickets and seeing them, and some people throw a fit about it. Anyway, they started putting every show, I don't know if it's every show, but most shows from their tour on their YouTube channel. They're like 2 hours long. They're super well produced. It's great music, great visuals. It's awesome because it's like you don't have to go see them. You can still see them. So anyway, if you're a fan of them, or if you don't know anything about them, you may be interested in that because they are really amazing live. I've seen them once. But before we go, we have a lot of new Patreon supporters, and that's awesome. So we started doing this thing. We do after we stop recording for this show. We talk a little bit longer. We do kind of an after show, and it's a little different, and it's other stuff, and it's whatever we feel like doing. And that only is available to people who support us on Patreon. And so I think because of that, we got some new Patreon supporters this week. So I want to especially thank Make, Build, Modify, Keith Decent, Ashley Stilson. Hey, Ash. She's on my Twitch stream all the time. She's awesome. Malt and Make, Corey Ward, Evan and Caitlin, Jedediah Schultz, and Wise Old Dow. So we have a lot more names there.
Thank you, guys.
than we've
Thank you
had in
very
the
much.
past.
Thank you.
That's awesome. So if you guys want that little extra bit of show, go check us out at patreon.com/makingit, and you can have it.
Yeah.
So thanks for all the support there, everybody.
One more quick thing before we sign off. If you're going to be in the Dayton area on Sunday the 6th, I am giving a talk at 1 p.m. Come say
Nice.
hi. I'll have books
Maker
too.
Fair? That's the Maker Fair.
The Dayton Mini Maker Fair.
Nice. Sweet. Cool. Well, good to be back.
Yeah.
Good to see you guys. I hope I
Thank you.
get in the shop this week.
I hope you do too.
Thanks, bud. All right. We'll see you guys next time.
Later.
All right. Love you.